Hello, everyone, and welcome to the What Customers Want Trends, Trials, and Top New Plant Intros webinar presented by Proven Winners. This discussion will explore how Proven Winners' rigorously trialed 2026 introductions can help you meet rising consumer demand, outpace competitors, and drive spring sales with confidence. I'm Hillary Wynn, the Custom Content Manager for Meister Media Worldwide, publisher of Greenhouse Grower Magazine, and I'll be moderating this webinar. Before we get started, I wanted to let you know that a recording of this webinar will be available. So if you miss anything or want to share with your colleagues, we'll be sending out a link tomorrow. And if you have questions during the webinar, we'll have plenty of time for Q&A at the end of the presentation. So please be sure to enter them in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. I'd like to go ahead and introduce our speaker, Tim Anderson, Director of Grower Accounts at Proven Winners, where he fosters brand loyalty among growers and brokers. With a focus on education and innovation, Tim plays a key role in introducing new plant varieties across all company programs. He brings more than 20 years of industry experience to his work, combining deep knowledge with a passion for helping growers succeed. At this point, I will turn the webinar over to our speaker. Tim, welcome.
Thank you, Hillary, so much. And thanks, everyone, for listening this afternoon about some of the things that Proven Winners is up to, right? So let's talk about some trends, right? Some trends that we see internally, probably some trends that you see as well within your facilities. We'll talk about trials. Those trials are what we're doing internally in-house, leading up to those introductions where we put those products out into our regional trial sites across North America, whether it's botanical gardens, universities, and whatnot. And we'll, of course, tie that into the top new plant intros from Proven Winners for this coming season, so you can see how those are performed as you write your orders, plan your programs at the retail side or the grower side, and prepare for 2026 retail. First, let's look at some data here, right? And let's kind of reflect this on ourselves. Think back to our own personal businesses with this, right? So this past season, 79% of all the new Proven Winners annual varieties ranked better in sales on our provenwinners.com than in liner sales, right? 79%. Think about that. With all the new great varieties we're putting into marketplace, how that perception is, right? More on the online side than the liner sales through a grower retailer programs. And you might say, well, 79, that's pretty rough. But think about it where it was just over the last 4-year average, a 90-10, right? And yes, it's easy to do. Rinse and repeat. Season was good. Keep doing what we've always been doing. Let's try to change that mindset and look at things differently as we go into this 2026 season, of course. So what does this really mean, right? Well, I think we all know that consumers want to buy the new introductions. When they have the chance, when they see the product, they will pick it up and it'll gravitate and take that off the shelf, right? So let's look at some real life examples from this past couple of seasons. So Supertunia Blue Tierra, great variety. Hey, in my travels, I've heard many growers, many retailers praise the features and benefits that make Blue Tierra and its sister seedling Pink Tierra a great opportunity to have at marketplace. But in online sales, it ranked number 7 this past year, where in liner sales through our propagator network, it was 37. So think about the disparity of that, right? 37 versus 7. Of course, something like Saffron Finch in our 2024 introduction had very similar pattern, right? With the online sales ahead of the liner sales. But maybe one of the stark realities is looking at a variety like Aromagica Purple, right? Introduced this past season. It won numerous awards across North America and last summer in various trial sites, right? And those of you who attended trial sites, you saw it. You made notes. I'm sure you captured your attention when you looked at those huge umbrals, vigorous plant, steadfast floral performance. But the online sales were 63 versus liner sales of 251, 251st spot. So think about that disparity between those. And how do we fix that, right? Well, it's easy to call out the issues and problems. Let's talk about some better Axiom research and what maybe could help us bridge this small gap. 39% of gardeners want more blooms or higher yields. So what does that really mean? Well, to me, think about breeding as overall. Breeding is constantly evolving a plant, right? Taking what the faults and weaknesses were and improving on them each and every day. That's what we do. Across all of Proven Winners programs, that's other folks do around the world. We're all looking to improve upon something to meet that responsibility of bringing more blooms, higher yields, better consumer performance. And for us, we take that personal at Proven Winners, right? As we stand by the brand that gardeners trust, we know that's our commitment each and every day to live by. Top 3 reasons that consumers visit IGCs. Number 1, more plant choices. Simply put, they want diversity. They want to make those selections at their own, not be forced into a small pigeonhole of what they can and can't get. They want to find new varieties. We just touched on that, right? The disparity of new varieties in liner production first and online. Consumers are seeking out those new introductions, right? And they want to, third thing I want to do is they want to help choosing the right plant. If you have team members walking the retail floor, be that advocate, assist that person. Those are the things that consumers are looking for. Other studies have shown us that it's extremely low awareness among gardeners about these introductions, even though the demand is high. So we got to fix that, right? Let's look at the numbers in a little bit more depth. I mentioned more plant choices at 30%. So over a third of those visiting a garden center want those more choices. New plants, 17%. Helping choose the right plant, 14%. So if we kind of sum those three together, really those are all looking for the same thing. You have basically about over half of the audience looking for better plants, more plants, and new items. So I think each one of those falls into our responsibility as a breeding community and behind a consumer-facing brand, but it falls into your responsibility as either a rep, a grower retailer, to make sure that your consumer seeks you out for those great opportunities each and every spring. If we don't provide those attributes of more plant choices, new plant varieties, and help along that retail floor, what are we at risk of? Well, simply put, we know through the internal research and external research that consumers are willing to drive to garden center to find what they want, right? And if that's the case, our research shows that over half of the audience is visiting between 2 and 5 garden centers each and every spring. And simply put, why are they? Well, they could have come to XYZ Garden Center and realized they just didn't have enough new offerings or didn't have what they wanted, and they went elsewhere. Think about that. Whether it's a new phone, a new car, a new restaurant, we're all seeking out those new opportunities to be first on the block and say, hey, I got this. I tried it out. It works, right? We want to be that with our peers. And plants inside garden centers are no different. So if they're willing to go to those 5 garden centers a year, how far would one be willing to travel to find those particular plants that they want each and every day? Obviously, a third of the audience says, I'll go within 25 miles. And if we sit back and think about where we are as a garden center or a grower, within a 25-mile range of ourselves, well, my gosh, there's probably quite a few different avenues that people could seek out plants. And remember, our key focus is to always retain our audience, retain our customer base within our facility, within our retail program, that people seek us out as that bona fide choice, no matter where you are in North America. So think about that a little bit harder as we look at that. So what do we want to take from these first few slides here, right? People are on the lookout. They want unique. They want different material. If we can't help them, they're going to go elsewhere, right? So take note of that as you go to trial gardens around North America. Take note of what's new, what's improved. Listen to your esteemed rep. Listen to the creative content that's out there and help that individual seek that product, right? But don't forget that Proven Winners trialing and testing will always give you and your customer audience the confidence you need in growing these new varieties year over year, right? Why is that? Upstream, we've looked at that product for many and many seasons, and you've had the chance to witness it in grower trials or university botanical sites around North America. And I'll touch on that more in depth here in a few minutes. So once again, key takeaways. Don't forget, new and exciting is where it should be. Lead with those items. Make sure we call them out and support those with respective programs. Don't just put them on the table. Look for ways to merchandise and market those accordingly. And of course, with our help, with the retail solutions team member, we can get that done efficiently in that process. So I mentioned we want to kind of touch on some of the Proven Winners plans and programs for the 25-26 retail season. And yes, here we are in fall, and trial garden season is behind us, and maybe I'll yearn for days like the beautiful set on the screen here you see today of gardens looking great. And we'll see those here in another 6 to 9 months, of course, right? Depending on where we are in North America. But we can't forget a few things about the brand of Proven Winners, the people behind that, and the people are also you and those plants that encompass the great Proven Winners program. Let's remember that we are 100% invested in consumer success, right? Each and every day, folks in white shirts like myself, other team members, we wake up looking for creative ideas to make the home gardener successful, right? And it can be simple things like our Aquapot insert, our WaterWise program, or it could be what we're all here for today, of course, is to make sure that we bring cutting-edge Proven Winners Color Choice flowering shrubs, cutting-edge Proven Winners perennials, cutting-edge Proven Winners annuals, and of course, great indoor programs like Proven Winners Leaf Joy. All those things play a role in making Proven Winners the brand that is fully behind consumer success each and every day, and no one lives that like we do. So I'll mention three words as we go forth here: trialed, tested, and proven, right? Things that you should know so that you feel comfortable. As I mentioned, when you put those products on your retail table or in your greenhouse, before they go in the buggy out the front door, you need to know that we've truly done trial, tested, and proven. And so, with our internal breeding program in our Texas facility and across working with breeders across the world, we look at seedlings and we'll analyze those from multiple years upstream, and we'll narrow that selection process down to maybe 1, 2, or 3%, depending on the genera and depending on the volume the market can dictate. And by doing so, we're only selecting the best of the best. And as you know, consumer performance has been the hallmark for us since day one, and we'll make sure those attributes check off those boxes in particular as we go forth with those advancements. Once we narrow down that selection process into that 1, 2, or 3% of our seedling selection, we're going to now send it into the tested part. This is where each and every one of you come into a big part of our picture. These are going to go into trial gardens around North America, advanced grower trials, university botanical gardens. This is where we want you. We want you to come to each one of these sites, seek us out with our white shirts, let us walk you through the features and benefits of these great varieties, take your notes, bring your camera, make a documentation so that you leave that garden and you go back home and you sit down with your retail team, or you sit down with your grower team, or you sit down with your production planning group and say, hey, this is what I've seen. This is what we got to implement. Let's figure out how to get it done, because we want to bring only the best of the best in those advanced new genetics to the marketplace. That's how each of us should view our own roles in our own respective businesses. And once again, we're in this together, as I mentioned. Seek us out to help you with those features and benefits as we go forward. I mentioned trial, tested, and the last being proven. Part of the responsibility we have when we put material in university and public trial sites around North America is truly have it vetted by a third party, right? We know we've done our due diligence up until then with all the checks and balances we want, but we need third parties to also provide us with that validation, of course, right? And by doing so, over the last 30 plus years, we've won over 11,000 awards, right? And we've always seeked those awards out to enduring flower performance, heat tolerance, ideal growth package, and performance universally across North America, right? It's not just sitting a plant at a certain part of North America. We want to see if it can successfully perform across all parts and pieces of the North American market. And that's the proven part. And also by garnering those awards, it does a couple of things to help at the consumer level. Think about yourselves too, right? When you're looking at a new restaurant or looking at electronics or a new car, whatever it may be, we always seek out the peer advice, right? We're going to look up how many stars that restaurant have. What's the peer review on this new pair of shoes? Whatever it may be. We know that we have trusted networks within our peer groups that we can utilize to show that things are truly bona fide, proven, or in this case, proven winners plants. And so take note of that as we work forth in this 2020-26 season. So let's kind of run through some of those great new introductions that are coming up here in the 2025 and 2026 spring season. Well, first and foremost, I want to talk about a new Maestro Coral Agastache. So kind of something I really love. It's an annual Agastache. What are we looking for? Obviously, we have a solution-based commitment to make to our consumer-based audiences. And with this new Agastache Maestro Coral, you're going to find a great amount of pollinator activity, hummingbirds, deer-resistant, great drought tolerance, all solution-based things, of course, right? But we want to make sure that you and the grower community and the retail community are equally as successful. So we know if it's Tidy Habit, we can make a nice Grande or our Galen Royale program with a nice V-shaped habit, and you can see flowering will take place from top to bottom, up and down the entire plant there. As I mentioned, obviously we checked off the consumer box of deer-resistant, drought-tolerant hummingbirds, but we also have to make sure that we can fulfill that easy production practices for our great thriller and filler programs. So you might ask, well, how are you checking for longevity of flower? Is it shear? Is it cycle back? Does it need shearing, or is it perpetual color? Well, upstream, before we even get to the public or trial gardens across North America, we use our own internal trialing facility to validate those things. And so you're going to see plenty of pictures today that are going to focus on a kind of setting like this, right? It's at a trial facility of ours where we would plant our product into a black plastic inside a heavy field, in a field setting. And we plant this typically around week 47. So let's just say in November. We analyze it continually for multiple months up until around week 22. Let's just say the last of May, 1st of June, when we kind of make our hard rubber stamp on this if it's validated enough to go through. So what you're seeing today, you're seeing a photograph that was taken on week 22 after transplant on week 47 in the southern US, of course. So you're getting 6 months of full color. As I mentioned in that grande, you're seeing flowering from top to bottom, so ground level all the way up. A nice, vibrant, rich color, but great things there. I think our consumer audience will appreciate the features and benefits of Maestro Coral. But after we've done our own internal trial, we had to send it across North America this past summer. And I'm sure many of you, if you made your trips around North America, you probably saw Maestro Coral in some of these same great trial sites. So if we start off in the southern U.S. in June, we see how the opportunity was to showcase Maestro Coral at Young's Plant Farm, right? That's in-ground performance. Once again, nice V-shaped habit. But you can also see the container production that we saw in August at Raker Roberta's, right? So both pot performance, in-ground performance, very much perfect in that regards. But also as we sneak ourselves out west to Smith Gardens, you can see how it looked there. And I mentioned earlier that it's not just one region of the country, it has to work universally, right? And there's so many different microclimates of weather across North America that plants perform differently. And when I see something performing across multiple climates, that's a true bona fide Proven Winners plant. What I was really happy to see was some of the things that came out of the University of Georgia. And mind you, these awards, as I mentioned, are just now forthcoming, right? A lot of the evaluations are done in October and supplied to the various breeder audiences after that. And it's important to us to not pick on the highlights of a June item or a July item. We want to pick on and focus on the results from August and September. So in the case of the University of Georgia, when they were planting these crops in April, sure, a great evaluation in June is perfect, but look at where we are on 9/12, September 12th, right? 5.5, 4.5, 5 for a total score of 4.88. That's the important part. Where does the crop at after 5 or 6 months is, once again, we owe it to ourselves. We owe it to you and the grower and retail community, but we ultimately owe it to the consumer to bring only the best to market. I think Maestro Coral checks all those boxes. But as we go further across the country, it was exciting to see how it paired up at the Penn State University trials on week 36, right? Once again, it's not about June, July, or August flowering performance or voting performance, about what happens in September. And when we get the chance to see 5s across the board come September, that truly does solidify another great opportunity for you to feel confident, and also for us to promote these award-winning plants to the consumer side. So once again, consumers are coming into your garden center or your greenhouse asking for these by name. Don't forget, we have to make sure those correspond with each other, supply and demand. So Maestro Gold, all the same features and benefits that I mentioned about Maestro Coral. Once again, we did our in-ground performance multiple years ahead of time of going to the public and trial sites across North America. But it too pulled out very good ratings at various parts of the country. Once again, let's start late in the season. In September, the ratings that came out of Penn State, but we saw great performance across North America early on. One thing you'll hear me say today quite often is during the week that all of us were in Metrolina for their open house or trial garden week, there was some very nice environmental conditions. I say that tongue in cheek. It rained quite heavily, but that was an important thing for us and many of us to see as well, because it allowed us to see if our plants were lodging, what kind of flower resistance we had to weather, what was the bounce back. And so that just solidifies and endorses with anyone who was in attendance there as well on how these plants would react to those adverse environmental conditions. So once again, you can see it across June, July, August programs, looking great everywhere we go. So something that was pretty exciting to me was our new Campfire Red Ember, right? So I was sure if we were in an office setting, we raised our hand, who's seen Campfire Marshmallow? Many people say, oh, that's a great variety. Well, Campfire Red Ember checks all those same boxes as well. So beforehand, before we even get to the trial photographs, what were we looking for? What was our criteria? Obviously, want to make sure it was non-fading, right? Kept that fiery red color all summer long into fall. It did that. Want to make sure it was low maintenance, had great heat tolerance. We're also checking how does it play well in container recipes before we even get to go to a public trial site. Do all that due diligence behind the scenes. And of course, it has to mix and play with all those other varieties. I say it has to mix and play, but we also know that single pot production is the key to getting it from the table into the buggy into the car, right? And obviously, just like with marshmallow, tidy, impeccable habit in small pot production. But it doesn't just stop in small pot production. I mentioned we did our due diligence upstream in internal facilities multiple years before even coming out to public trial sites with recipes. How did it play with our Super Bell's yellow? How did it play with our lustrous basket Tangelo lantana? Oh, look great, right? How did it also perform at the end of late summer, early fall for us? Obviously steadfast in that monocrop production there. So we know internally we felt good about it. Now let's just see how the results were externally. So obviously I mentioned Marshmallow and Red Ember, a perfect pair. You can see them side by side in this photograph from June. You can also, once again, I'll keep mentioning the weather conditions that we endured in that week in North Carolina can really show you how this plant responded and how it performed. So great coverage, right? Just a mat of coverage there. Great impeccable habit, good steadfast color, good color retention. That's what we're looking for on this variety, and definitely check those boxes. And the in-ground performance too. So how did it work in containers? Well, starting off in Ontario, looked pretty good in July, looked good in August in Michigan at Raker. But what really set home to me is think about how it looked at the end of summer. I want to keep re-emphasizing that. So here we are in New Jersey at Lucas Greenhouse on week 36. And just look at how vibrant and pronounced that color is on the Campfire Red Ember. Really, really dark at that point in time. And why is that important? We know consumers seek out success, but consumers can seek out our marketing programs. And we've been very, very successful with our Fall Magic program, right? And something like Campfire Red Ember can easily be a plug and play into the Fall Magic program, providing a retail garden center opportunity to enhance the retail program and that late summer and early fall program beyond the typical mum window and whatnot. So once again, great summer performance in containers. Nothing fell off. Great substance to the product there too. But if we continue around on the ground performance towards the end of summer, things were really looking good as I went to Wisconsin, right? Like I said, that mat of color. You can see the photograph on the left there. When I was there in the low light conditions, evening dusk, it just really kind of hit me with that, sunset there, Campfire Red Ember matched with Campfire Marshmallow. Just a nice, beautiful combination, luminescent glow to it. Just a great time to see those varieties in person. But if we drift back east towards Penn State in September, once again, we pulled out, 4.5 fives in the September. I mean, that was after 2 months of a row of straight five. That's what's important to us. And so you can see it in the container presence there in September. And you might ask, well, hey, Tim, I look at the screen. I see there's a 2 out of 7. What was number one? Well, number one was Campfire Marshmallow. And we always put one of our existing comps in the trials as well so that you know what the comparisons are. I'm not talking about existing varieties I just knew, but otherwise I would show you Campfire Marshmallow was the number one. So with fives across the board. So take note of that. Utilize this research. You can see this various information on Penn State's site as well for you to look at those in depth. So as you think of Proven Winners and all the years that we've been out there with these great products, you probably know the name Super, right? Super Tunia, Super Beena, Super Bells. Those are synonymous with our great programs. And so one of our top picks this coming season is Super Bell's Magic Double Grapefruit. Once again, one of my personal favorites is traveling around North America, hearing the feedback from growers and those who have been to trial sites has been great as well. So we appreciate all the kind words and compliments there too. So what does this plant? What does it do? How do I utilize it? Well, first and foremost, it's double flowering, right? So unique attributes there. You're going to find plenty of different colors within the same plant. So you're going to have some fuchsia, some rose colored, some lemon yellow, and all of those things will change based on UV light levels, temperature, chemistry needs, moisture management, and day length, right? So different variables will play into that. We like our plants to have garden performance, so we look for plants that can mix well with other varieties and not be consumed by some of aggressive plants. And definitely Super Bell's Magic Double Grapefruit does that. A couple of key bullet points on here. Ideal for spring sales and holiday promotions. Think about where you maybe are around North America and where does Easter fall or spring kickoff start, right? Think about some of the old pop mum days where you had Easter egg mums of multiple colors. And as this variety kind of transitions back and forth to different colors, if you're kind of corresponding with an Easter season, you could end cap this, end cap it with grandes, end cap it with uprights, end cap it with baskets, right? And just make a unique marketing program opportunity there as well. But also take note of the screening for Thalaviopsis. That's a big part of our program and a big part of our selection process, right? We want that in-ground performance to also trickle down into small pot production for the grower, large pot production for the grower, but ultimately container production for the consumer as well. And that this variety really checks that box. So another thing here, I like to say this plant is 2 plants for the price of 1. Kind of think of my joke here, tongue in cheek, right? And these are photographs from a couple of seasons ago at our own internal facility before we even put it into the market, as we kind of rubber stamped it on our own side. And think about mixed recipes. Sometimes it's hard to grow different genera within a basket because they have different cultural regimes and whatnot. But something like Superbell's Magic Double Grapefruit, it's monocropping, right? Easy to do in production, easy to do in efficiencies, but also it kind of gives you this mixed recipe look or mixed variety feel to it. So something unique, something you can position differently, right? And of course, multiple close-ups showing you that flower, how it's different in shades and transitions and whatnot. So I mentioned screening for Phalaenopsis is an important part for us, but let's just kind of look at a few shots from in-ground performance across North America, right? Early on, these varieties were doing great in the southern U.S. sites, and we're still doing great into late summer as well as we paid secondary visits. As we worked around in container production across all different environments in North America, whether it's heat, rain, whatever it may be, root systems were strong and robust, of course, in the SWIA trials in Ontario, Raker trials in Michigan, and container production, you can see how prevalent those plants are. When I go to the next slide, I think this is the aha moment when it comes to this variety. At least it was for me personally, and I hope you see it the same way I do. I took this photograph on the left at Sopwith Greenhouses in Ontario on Wednesday, August 20th, right? And you can see there's just a variety of colors. I took the photograph on the right-hand side on Tuesday, September 16th. So basically 4 weeks apart. So first and foremost, what do you recognize? Well, you can see the robust vigor of the plant, how it plays with our award-winning Truffula Pink Gomphrena, playing well with our Super Tuna Mini Vista Pink Cloud. But look at how the flower coloring is changing within those 4 weeks window. Why is that? Well, obviously we're in late August on the photograph on the left and late September on the right. Day length, temperatures, nighttime temperatures, watering, UV light levels, all those things are changing to give this plant just a truly unique opportunity to utilize and showcase all the features and benefits that it has. And I wanted to point out those differences based on the temperature and light levels and whatnot too, because that can also transfer over to greenhouse production, right? If you're finishing off a crop or hardening off this crop in early spring production with cool hardening off this crop in early season production, you're going to find some of those rich colors that come on, right? It makes it truly a unique plant that the consumer can really be wowed after it matures and goes through all the different coloring patterns. So great thing with Superbell's Magic Double Grapefruit. You say that's great. It's in the window box, Tim, in September and August, looking great. Did it still do well on the ground? It still do well in other container programs? And it did. In September as well in Jersey and Lucas Greenhouses, it looked great as well. What really impressed me is a look at the photograph on the right. Here we are in late September. You can see it's next to the abuse of an asphalt driveway, still rocking and rolling, looking great. No holes, no puncture marks there. It's just all one encompassing group there. And it's ironically fighting for moisture with Super Junior Latte. And of course, the Maestro Coral Agastache I mentioned earlier on. Look at that robust plant right behind it. So all those different features and benefits of all three of those plants fighting for the same moisture next to the parking lot asphalt, looking great in September. And that's what makes Superbell's Magic Double Grapefruit one of my top picks. But we can't just let my opinion be the only opinion today that we want to hear. If we think back to this summer, the University of Georgia had their trial garden open house. And there was 2 varieties this year, one being Brewers, one not, that received 2 awards. There was no other plants other than just us 2. And they received the People's Choice and the industry winners. So that's a pretty high criteria for me that I was pretty proud to be associated with. But more importantly, let's once again think about this variety being planted in April and analyzation taking place in June, July, August, and September. And when we're still pulling 5s, 4s, and 5s in September, that's something to be proud of. And obviously proud for you at the grower retail level to put that on your table, and proud knowing that the consumer will come into your place asking for this by name and walk out being successful the coming season. And of course, that means a repeat visit to your place in 2027. So looking forward to seeing more of this Superbell's Magic Double Grapefruit, hearing those success stories when our teams visit you across North America this coming season. So I've talked a lot about robust performance and how plants are performing, and that's often looked at as a sign of success with the plant. But I want to talk a little bit about our Laguna Royale series. You probably say Laguna Royale, Tim. I know of Laguna, but I'm not sure I know what Laguna Royale is. Well, Laguna Royale. So the name Royale stands for the compact series within a genera. And that Royale name also follows our Color Blaze Coleus, Royale Color Blaze Coleus, our Royale Superbena Verbena program, right? So those are the compact series within that genera. So you might say, well, is compact really consumer performance? Well, then I want to make you aware of what makes the Laguna Royale a consumer performing plant. And mind you, there's 4 colors: blue pearl, azure, lilac, and pink. And once again, going back to, we've seen it over and over today, our internal trials that are planted in November, analyzed continually each and every day throughout the next 6 months with the hard photograph stop you see on week 22 here, right? So you can see the size habit in a deep southern U.S. facility, on the heat of the plastic, and the full flowering performance. It's still being seen on week 22. So great things with that. So that's perfect. Heat tolerant. Did it still work around North America? Yes, it did. It did work in the ground. It did work in uprights. It did work in basket programs as we transferred across North America. So feel very, very comfortable with supporting the initiatives behind the Royale program of heat tolerance, compact plants that'll play well in recipes, play well with other plants, of course, in upright containers and baskets, and of course, function in-ground performance with good heat tolerance for consumers. So sit back for a second and think about something. Think about your travels this past summer across North America to various trial sites. Think about your own backyard and your own plants that you have on your porch or your patio or in your garden. And let me guess, and hey, I'm guilty of as well. We're all guilty. It's probably very heavy on petunia, very heavy on coleus, very heavy on verbena, very heavy on calibrachoa, right? And the same thing can be said when you go to these trial sites along North America, right? You probably only saw one Superlophus in any of the trial sites that you visited, and Superlophus Sunglow was that plant. So as we mentioned in some of our previous slides in the beginning, consumers are seeking out choices, differences, great performing items with solution-based, and of course, new items. What could check all those boxes more so than Superlophus Sunglow? Nothing, in my personal opinion. So if you don't know Superlophus, let me tell you a little bit about it, right? Obviously, it has heat and drought tolerance second to none, but it's very adaptable to across multiple environments in North America. I say it's the perfect plant for a mailbox, the end of the hose, right? Where you can't touch it, you can't water it very often. It'll thrive there. It also, with these yellow flowers, are like bullseyes for pollinators, right? Just attract them in like crazy. Obviously, it has great features and benefits for that on the consumer side of things, but how does a grower react to a plant like this? Well, obviously, it's going to make a beautiful grande. It's, like I said, versatile, low maintenance, can do multiple different attributes across the program, right? Containers, window boxes, landscaping, whatever it may be. It can be monocropped in a basket. You can see that dainty, soft foliage, that kind of thread leaf foliage there, popping very well with the flower on top of the foliage. But what about mixing it, right? So let's sit back and think if we're in cottage country or lake country and we have consumers that come into our garden center each and every year and say, hey, I need plants. I'm going to be in town for this week, but I'm going to be gone for the next week and a half. What kind of things can withstand that desolation, that isolation those plants might have with that consumer not being at their home or primary residence or secondary residence? Well, think about this recipe right here. Taking our Blew My Mind XL Evolvulus, pair it with our Superlophus Sunglow. This would be a recipe or combination that you could come back after a week's time and still have this plant thriving, both plants thriving in a basket or upright container on that secondary home or primary home residence. That's one attribute of it. I mentioned ideal for landscape. Going back once again to show you those kind of same internal photographs that we've done multiple years in advance of even getting out to the public trial sites. For various reasons, we've taken out the photo of our dear colleague there because there's lots of confidential things in there, but you can see bullet holes in the plastic where things have died out. And you can see the abusive ground, that this is not high fertility, not the best ground when we're putting these abusive trials on to truly benefit, to get the features and benefits of those Proven Winners items. So here it is, once again, at 6 months old, full flower, full canopy, awesome performance. That's in a dry, arid ground situation there. Does it work universally, like you said, Tim? Yes, it does. Here it is, once again in the southeast, after that brutal rainstorm, looking great. In the upper right-hand corner, you'll see Swaya Gardens there in Ontario, in a container production, thriving in midsummer, right? But what really stood the time as we looked at it in Smith Gardens, right? Dynamite performance there. And once again, a Pac Northwest environmental conditions can be much different than anything we see around the other parts of North America. So it worked all over, was a great opportunity to showcase the features and benefits of something unique and different. As we mentioned, consumers are looking for those features and benefits. But once again, don't just take my word for it, as awards are starting to come out. Here we have a Classic City Award from the University of Georgia. And like I said, it's not about what happens in May, June, July, or August. It's about what happens in September. And obviously, we have the September 12th rating of all 5s across the board. That's a true hallmark of not only a Proven Winners plant, but a plant that the consumer will gravitate each and every year to, so they know they'll be successful in their own personal gardening experiences. So besides that, I just want to showcase something that was just a couple of weeks ago and at Pleasant View Gardens in New Hampshire. As we're approaching short days, cool New England weather, you can see really how Super Lophus owned the garden, looked great, and it was still looking great in early 1st of October. So features and benefits are endless. Opportunities abound to have you have something unique and different and lead the way in your garden center, lead the way with your grower community, but look for something unique that's Super Lophus Sun Glow. So drum roll, please. Okay, why is that? Because Super Tunia Vistas have been synonymous with Proven Winners for many, many years, right? And in my travels, just as last week, a retailer mentioned, Tim, people come in asking for the word Vista, right? We know that. And the Vista program has had a lot of high criteria to meet. And up until today, there's only 6 Vistas, now are 7. So think about that. Vista Silverberry, Vista Fuchsia, Vista Paradise, Vista Snowdrift, Vista Jazzberry, and of course, the most award-winning petunia in the best petunia period, Super Tunia Vista Bubblegum. And now we're bringing you Super Tunia Vista Cool Jazz. So everything you know about a Vista, you're going to see in Cool Jazz, right? Impeccable landscape performance, drought tolerance, a little hedge performance in the garden, of course, exceptional bounce back from any weather issues that are thrown at it. But I want to note that we call out this plant Cool Jazz, and I make notation here, it matches the habit and timing and vigor index of Jazzberry, right? So if you're looking at duo containers, Jazzberry and Cool Jazz will play very well together. Looking for grande bench run production, it checks that box as well. So just like with any of our Vistas, it's going to be aggressive in the consumer's yard. We want to make sure that container production can color up early, get to market, and it does that just like all the other varieties in the Vista program. As we were looking at this plant for multiple years in advance of coming to market for this year's trial garden season, we just left it on a set it and forget it kind of program, right? And it kept showing itself, exhibiting all the great features that we love in the Vista program to be warranted of our 7th introduction into this highly acclaimed Super Tunia Vista lineup. I mentioned Jazzberry many times over. This is my comment here, right? You can see they mirror each other, habits, timing, vigor index, make great duos, all the impeccable performance at Jazzberry. And we hear each and every day how Jazzberry is becoming a fan favorite in the last few years it's been to market. But once again, I don't just want to let my word and our internal trials be that indicator of that great success. Let's jump around North America real quickly. Starting in the South, did great. Once again, I'll talk about that weather extreme that we faced at Metrolina that week. You can see that day that Super Tunia Vista Cool Jazz has bounced back. And there's some things around it that didn't bounce back after that abusive rainstorm. So that's once again the hallmark of the Vista and Mini Vista program. Garden performance, weather resistance, bounce back, and once again that habit, dome forming habit. I've often been asked, Tim, is this, if they haven't seen it in the flesh, Tim, is this the same color as bubblegum or bubblegum replacement? No, it's not at all. And this photograph on the left kind of shows you the color differences side by side. Once again, this is an orchid pink with soft blue throat, so to speak, with Cool Jazz. And of course, bubblegum is a color that we know and love. You can see those side by side. And of course, you can see them in a row form with all the Vista bubble, with various Super Tunia Vistas and Super Tunia Mini Vistas in line with each other there. So once again, completely different than bubblegum in its color. Same great impeccable habit from all the other 6 existing Vista program. And people have asked, what do I pull out if I had to replace it with Cool Jazz? And the simple answer is it's not a replacement. There's nothing should be replaced in the whole Vista program. With only 7 varieties, consumers want choices. The data shows that. And so why not give them all 7 Super Tunia Vista options for this coming retail season of 2026? To carry on with my comments about how Jazzberry and Cool Jazz match each other, You can see here at Sopwith Greenhouses in August, you can see Jazzberry and Cool Jazz side by side, impeccable habit, timing. Like I said, pair them up together, utilize those features and benefits that we've worked hard to come to market with. And if we don't take my word for it, let's look at some university trial sites as well. So obviously at Lucas and Lucas Greenhouses in New Jersey in September, top to bottom coverage on the mat, still rocking and rolling, what we expect from one of the Vista lineup. At Penn State, in the middle there, it's flanked by, on the right, Bubblegum, flanked by Jazzberry on the left. Once again, the hallmark of all the Vistas there on display are top 3 Vistas, in my personal opinion, looking great there. So what I'll further endorse that Penn State trial is it gives us a lot of information, especially as we come into late season. And I was pretty proud to see this here. As we look at, yes, I know I'm saying June's not important, July's not important, August not important, September's important. And yes, I agree with that. But when we are getting 5 stars from June, August, and September, that's a true 5 out of 5. And of course, Genius rating 1 out of 65. So take home is, we've worked hard for 30 plus years to make a dynamite program with Super Tunia Vista. Cool Jazz is none other than one of the best in our program as well. Take advantage of this, provide those solutions and consumer choices that we know people are looking for in coming season. I mentioned the Super Tunia Mini Vista comment there a little bit ago as I showed you that Sprills Magic of a Grapefruit in the window box playing with Mini Vista Pink Cloud. And just want to reemphasize that Mini Vista is really in reference to the flower size. You get all the same impeccable habit, impeccable vigor and weather indexing that we see with all the Vistas, but it's referencing a smaller flower size. So with that smaller flower size, you get a more complete coverage, impeccable flower coverage where really no foliage is even showing on the Mini Vista program. And definitely Pink Cloud is that plant. So a nice little bright cotton candy pink flowers on here. It has a white eye to it, but also a heavily ruffling on there, which really pops when you see it in the flesh or in person. That ruffling does really very pronounced and comes out. What I will say about Mini Vista Pink Cloud, it's one of the earliest to flower. It will be in color very, very quickly in your Grande program. So getting to market in case type production, no problems at all there. As I mentioned in some internal photographs from a few years previous, as we were looking at this as a potential opportunity to go to market with, you can see how it performed for us in that set it and forget it concept of baskets or upright or internal facilities. So we knew we had something special there before we even put it into the market to have endorsed by third parties and growers and retailers alike who visit those trial sites. So as I mentioned, basket production, no problem there. Swaya Gardens in Ontario there, looking great in upright containers, full mound of color. But I want to once again emphasize the middle picture there was after a brutal rain event. And you can once again see the habit on there. Did nothing lodge, nothing beat up, flowers bouncing back. There's, like I said, some things behind it or next to it, maybe not showing that positive. Cool Jazz, ironically, is right to the right of Pink Cloud. So you can see that's as well looking great too. So some great things there. But that information transferred across all of North America, right? So Ontario, Pennsylvania, Lucas Greenhouses, all looking good as we went into August and into September. Coming back to Penn State trials, once again, it's not about the early season, it's about the late season. And I'll say it had 5s up until September, and it threw a 4.5 in there for uniformity. And I think I'll say it this way. When you have a Vista or a Mini Vista in a container, there's only so much space that plant can take up, and it takes up and it starts going. I think that's where I would say the uniformity, it's a compliment. It just outgrows its situation or outgrows the surroundings. And that's what we love to see as consumers seek out performing plants. But on top of that, at Raker, we had it both in an upright and a basket trial there. Obviously, it picked perfect score of 555 through every week of the trialing process at Raker. So once again, what we see externally match our external expectations from the last few years previous to that. So great things there. I touched on Super Lophus. I said to sit back in your chair and think about how your personal garden or trial sites you've been to and all the things you see in large amounts, but you don't see a lot of certain things. And I'll definitely say I think Southern Blaze pink, bright pink phlox, or it's the annual phlox, is probably one of those things you didn't see in mass numbers either as you visit various trial sites across North America. Going back to our beginning there, consumers seek out something unique, something different, willing to travel for that. And why not bring them something unique and different that's truly a bona fide Proven Winners performing plant, and that's Southern Blaze bright pink. There's 4 in the series now, but this is the most tidiest and most compact habit, so very uniform. As you can see in the Grande, perfect package. It can make a very nice intimate Royale or 1 gallon program too. But I want to jump back to some of the comments I've made over and over. Before we even felt comfortable going into a broader public audience to showcase this plant in trial gardens, we had to do our due diligence ourselves. And once again, same old story, 6 months old, when you still see full color and an annual phlox, this is impeccable habit, impeccable color. And what the photograph doesn't show you is that retina burner intensity of the flower color. That is really second to none. I mean, it's a wow, ooh, what is that? Put my sunglasses on kind of plant, right? So take note of that. Something different, something unique. But you might say, did it work elsewhere, Tim? And yes, it did, right? It worked at plenty of places in upright containers. Obviously in Ontario in July, Michigan in August, New Jersey in September, looking great at each and every stop. Now, what I need to do here as well is put a shameless plug in for a colleague. So as colleagues, we like to look at our plants, compare with our peers, and what they look like. So here, a dear colleague took his Superel's Magic Double Grapefruit, mixed it with Southern Blaze Bright Pink Phlox, and just made a beautiful little combination, little recipe there, right? They're playing well together. That crystal blue water of the pool really pops against those colors there. And also helps supporting with that award-winning Best Between the Periods, Between the Vista bubblegum that flanks the pool side there as well. So something different, unique opportunity to market a Southern Blaze Bright Pink combination, standalone production, monopot production, and upright containers, different attributes that you can think about and bring unique attributes to a grower and a consumer level. So we talked a lot about color items, things that are in color, but there are things in our program that are highly regarded proven accents lineup, right? They're foliage items, and foliage has a place, right? Foliage has a place in the garden, has a place in upright containers, upright in baskets, and there are different things we want to highlight with that. So a couple of the unique things to our proven accent program for this coming season surrounds a couple of plants called Super Sweet Caroline Medusa Black. You may remember we brought Sweet Caroline Medusa Green to market in the past. Now we're bringing the black. This is a lobed or fingered Ipomea. It has a very controlled vigor, right? It's a very upright, bushy plant. And yes, there's all types of characteristics that come with Ipomea. Yes, somebody might want a lamppost to a sidewalk plant, but there are opportunities to bring combination appearances with things like Medusa Black, how they play well with other plants and not consume them all up. As I mentioned, lobed or fingered, not heart-shaped. Grande production, easy little tidy ball of color, so not a rangy plant. As I mentioned, green and Medusa Green and Medusa Black very much pair up well together. If you've had experience with Medusa Green in the past couple of seasons, you'll probably recognize that had some very controlled habit, controlled vigor, which allowed you to play with it in other opportunities than you would traditionally with other Ipomea on the market. So I mentioned gardening is more than just color. Gardening is texture, movement in the wind, features and benefits of that. And so I thought a monopot like this really kind of shined. You could see how it just kind of moved and swayed there. The same thing at University of Wisconsin in the ground setting. Slight breeze moved that plant around and gave you texture and architectural design concepts that we can't always gather with prostrate or flat to the ground Ipomea. And you can see to the right-hand side, there's also some Sweet Caroline Medusa Green to the right of the black there. But that wasn't our only new introduction to our Sweet Caroline program. We brought to market this coming season Sweet Caroline Sweetheart Shadowstorm. And in my travels, it's been so fun to hear all the positive reviews of, oh, something different, something unique, but something unique in a good way. Because this plant, Sweet Caroline Sweetheart Shadowstorm, you're going to find every leaf has different shape or different foliage texture, different pattern to the foliage, but also giving that heart-shaped leaf that I mentioned is prominent in our Sweet Caroline Sweetheart program. That foliage structure will change and UV light will darken it up. So you're going to see that. But I want to make note, the main important thing to call out is the reduction of internode stretch. It is a very refined, very tidy plant. It plays well in recipes like our Color Blaze Chocolate Drop, our Diamond Frost Euphorbia. So things like that can mix and mingle with it and give you a foliage appearance, but still give unique color attributes. I tried to showcase this photograph to try to give you the best that I could of showing you how the vigor indexes or the garden performance of Sweet Caroline Shadowstorm along with Medusa Green and Medusa Black line up together. And you guys almost have a little hedge form there, very similar. If you laid a piece of plywood on top, they'd almost be touching each one. So great little tidy habit there. But I was looking at the University of Georgia results, and I was once again proud. Okay, 5.55, 4, 4.5, whatever, all those good things, right? But the August plants of distinction. Obviously, we would expect that from Ipomea, a great heat-tolerant program. One of the comments I see on here is 4s across the flowering window. And I want to make sure that's properly interpreted correctly. We don't want to see flowering on Ipomia program. We want to see a vegetative state. We want to see them take care of that vigor index, keep that color saturation and the foliage looking great. And that's a key attribute of a positive to myself. And I'm sure others in the Proven Winners team would feel the same way to that. So I mentioned early on that people seek out unique opportunities, different choices. They go to multiple garden centers each and every year. So we need to make sure that they come to your garden center seeking out national plants of the year, and then you have those on your table to support that demand. If you aren't aware of our Plant of the Year program, almost a decade now we've had this program going. Obviously started out in 2017 with the top selling petunia on the market, Super Petunia Vista Bubblegum, award winner through and through. But what I want to point out that every year those plants have been in our catalog and have been national there, they've always averaged over a 47% growth every year. So if you're tired of a stagnant bottom line and you want to change that, sit back and think about, how do I embrace the National Plant of the Year program? It's simple. Take advantage of it. Utilize our retail solutions team. Let's put marketing and POP in place so that when consumers come in, they'll ask for those plants by name. You know how to execute that product from going into the table, to the buggy, to the car. And so take note of that. You'll see some top winners on here from multiple years over. And once they become a Plant of the Year, they don't fall backwards. They always maintain that high volume number each and every year going forth. So for 2026, you might have seen a little sneak peek on that previous slide there. The annual of the year is Safari Dust Jane Britannia. If you don't know about Safari Dust, think of everything that Sudora was not, or everything that Jane Britannia was not 25 years ago as well. Obviously more heat tolerance, more steadfast flower, does not have the dry down or cycle that you would see with other things like Sudora, Bacopa, whatever it may be. But we've heard and we listen to consumers through our social feeds, and consumers contacting us as a consumer-facing brand, and we've learned from retailers alike, this Plant of the Year program is so successful. How can we expand upon it, and what can we do to enhance our bottom line at the retail level and make consumers happy? And so we are doing that for 2026. We are adding 2 new categories to annual of the year program. The first being a Petunia of the Year, and in the inaugural season, it'll be Super Petunia Hoopla Vivid Orchid. Once again, Proven Winners synonymous with Super Petunia, and Super Petunias is our hallmark, so it makes great sense there. Obviously, focus on a Caladium of the Year, Heart to Heart Chinook, but the other new category to our Annual of the Year program is a Landscape Annual of the Year, Senorita Rosalita. Obviously, there's attributes out there that feature for both commercial, residential landscaping projects, and just overall a great garden plant. So you might ask, well, are these iconic? Are they readily available? Will they perform like all your other top sellers or top performers? Of course they will. Here's the photographs from across North America on Super Petunia Hoopla Vivid Orchid. Once again, not new, been in the program for a few years now, but garnered many awards in its lifetime. Senorita Rosalita. Everyone can produce a crop like this. This is cookie cutter, drought tolerant, disease resistant, deer resistant, non-sticky foliage, and most important, it's sterility, right? There's nothing more important to a landscape performance than having a plant like that. And don't just take my word for it, of course. We had it across trial sites in North America this past year, and this plant has been in our program for over 12 years. And it's in our top 10 award-winning plants in its lifetime. So once again, in garden performance, beautiful setting there, pollinator dream to that program. But once again, happy to bring a landscape annual of the year, in addition to our Petunia of the Year and our traditional annual of the year for 2026. Besides my personal opinions, obviously the row trials at Raker performed very, very well with 5s across every week on their rating system. Maybe another little side conversation here. To the right of the Senorita Rosalita, I just noticed there's a photograph of Aromagica Purple. As I mentioned, that was a multi-award winner in last summer, previous to this year. And this year, the online sales were higher than are reflective of our liner sales. So once again, take opportunities to capitalize on those great plants when you go to these trade shows and seek those features and benefits in the garden. So in addition to our National Plant of the Year campaign, you're well aware that we probably have our Recipe of the Year program. My apologies. So we're always going to make sure we can provide you with a Caladium of the Year program. That's kindness this year with lemon blush, splash of wine. We want to make sure we can always give you a shade loving combination. we know shade demand is high. We hear that from consumers. We hear that from retailers and growers alike. And so Pixie Powder checks that box as shade-loving combination for the 2020-26 season with Double Light Apple Blossom, Diamond Frost Euphorbia, and our Acapulco Coral Reef. We always want to make sure you have additional options, especially when it comes to sun-loving or seasonal approaches. And so we've done that with Saffron Sunrise and Moonlit Lavender. Another thing that we've heard from consumers and retailers and growers alike, especially on the consumer side, hey, they're not always diggers, they're decorators. And when they come into that garden center, they buy that National Recipe of the Year, and they're into theme decorating concepts. They cannot always find those component plants in small pot production. And so how do we work with retailers? How do we bridge the gap with the consumers so we can fight back against those trends of negativity of not being able to fulfill the consumer's needs? We've now incorporated one of our annual of the year into Saffron Sunrise. That's Safari Dusk Jim. We've incorporated our Super Tunia Hoopla Vivid Orchid into our Moonlit Lavender recipe. So now the consumer wins, right? They can decorate their theme concept. The retailer wins because the ticket's going to increase at the register level, right? So that's a positive there. And of course, at the bench at the retail level, the marketing campaign supports a broader depth. And of course, at the grower or wholesale level, the economies of scale and production are even that much greater. But don't just, once again, take our word for it. These recipes are picked beyond us. There's a group of growers across North America and inside our team, along with consumer voting, to help us showcase the features and benefits of what makes a recipe a bona fide recipe of the year. And you can see a couple of photographs from a couple of summers ago. But I want all of you on the grower side of things, to realize that we don't want to make these recipes hard for you to produce, right? So we look at 9 weeks, kind of the telltale sign to produce a nice basket, right? So Saffron Sunrise, Moonlit Lavender, you can see them at 9 weeks old in the photograph here. Photograph taken on week 17, so peak spring or early spring, depending on where you are in North America. And you can see all the components shine at the early season production, right? Tropical Sunrise is showing itself, Saffron Finch, Safari Dusk, same thing with Violet Ice and Hoopla Vivid Orchid, and of course, Mini Vista White. But it can't just be the early season. We have to make sure those recipes are steadfast in the distribution of the varieties at the end of summer. And here it is at the window boxes at Sopwith Greenhouses. You can see Safari Dusk showing itself along with the Saffron Sunrise recipe, along with Violet Ice and Mini Vista White showing off in the Super Tunia Hoopla Vivid Orchid in the Moonlit Lavender recipe. But as we are a unified group and a unified team to want to promote and help you all be successful and be unified in the success into the consumer channel, if there's ever a case where somebody needs information, additional information to add on how to produce a recipe, we will gladly share that with you. In the case of Pixie Powder, we have a great planogram to help you capitalize on showcasing all the features and benefits of Diamond Frost, all the features and benefits of Double Light Apple Blossom, and all the features and benefits of the Acapulco Coral Reef. So we'll always help you. That's our commitment each and every day to you, which then transfer down to the consumer level. So before we open up for questions, I'll just say this. Let's think about what we've always done and if that's the right thing. Think about the fact that there's countless opportunities across North America to see trial sites and hear from us, learn from us, and that you can go to your retail level and put plants on the table that are new and cutting edge, that follows the trends and data that consumers are telling us of where do I find this, how do I get this, and you can be the winner in your local market with your product of Proven Winners material. So thanks again, and Hillary, I'll open up for questions if that's okay. So.
Yeah, wonderful presentation. We do have some questions. Bubblegum petunias, are they available in 2026?
Yes, that is our steadfast #1 selling plant at Proven Winners. So Super Tunia Vista Bubblegum will be available across all of our propagators in great numbers in 2026.
All right. How large was that hanging basket for the Colubracoa Magic Double Grapefruit?
Sure. So that was a 12-inch basket program. So most likely that was 6 or 9 cuttings per, but that was a 12-inch basket program. Great question.
What is Proven Winners doing to drive consumer demand for these new varieties?
Good question. So there's a wide range of touch points that we utilize each and every year to introduce these new varieties to the consumer trade. Obviously, Content Creator Network is very important to us, right? So they can utilize those plants, endorse them, they hear from their peers, billboard campaigns, social feeds, but simple things like Gardener's Idea Books, the Gardener Idea Book that garden centers can welcome into their program. Their mailing list can support that, and people can come and asking for those plants by name. So,
What sort of mix of new versus existing varieties would you recommend for a medium-sized grower?
Another great question. So I think we got to look at data first, right? So whether you have a set threshold for economies of scale and production, or maybe look at it this way. We take the bottom 5 varieties out every year and cut that out and add 5 new. Or maybe it's a 10% of the 10% of our sales on the bottom we wipe out. So just keep taking your bottom off, dropping those varieties, adding new to the top, and keep doing that pull through circle each and every spring. Probably success with introduction of mixing of sorts of new varieties. So
All right. Is the 9-week basket combos from a 102C or URC start?
great question. So that is a liner that was put into that basket program. So it was 9 weeks old after transplant from a rooted liner program.
How will Safari Dusk grow in northern BC?
Great question. Just in the Canadian markets here as of late. So it'll do very well. And that's an environment that's ideal. You'll see color through fall on that. Very much steadfast with its color, will not cycle through a loss of color. So BC markets, no problem. Ontario market as well. And of course, Alberta and the prairies would do just fine as well too. So
Looks like this might be the last one. Do you recommend a difference in pricing for new versus existing varieties?
great question. So to do that, we have to utilize all the features and benefits that come in the Proven Winners toolbox, right? Obviously, if you're taking those new varieties and just putting them on the table with existing varieties, it's no notation that they are new. They become a commodity in some way, shape, or form. If we can call them out, utilize our retail solutions team to advocate an end cap of all new items, then yes, it's perfectly warranted to have a higher price point on those. Think about how we walk into the grocery store or clothing store or even iPhones. They're all priced differently based on new, but they're also called out. So we have to make sure that takes advantage of that program like that.
Oh, we just had one more come in. What ppm in is recommended for Colubracoa?
Great question. On our Proven Winners website, we have detailed information of all of our digital version of our cultural guide on there. And I think it's best to consult that and we can help that or follow up secondary with my email on the screen as well. So.
Okay, that does look like it's all the questions. So I want to thank everyone for attending today's webinar. I especially want to thank Proven Winners for presenting it. And a special thanks to our speaker, Tim Anderson, for providing valuable information on how Proven Winners 2026 introductions can help you meet demand, stand out from competitors, and grow your bottom line this spring. As a reminder, if you want to watch the webinar on demand or revisit certain parts, it will be archived and available at the same link you used to access it today. You will also receive an email with the link tomorrow. Thank you again for joining us. This concludes the webinar.